Hi guys, and welcome to Uncle Scott's Kitchen. We have breaking news, believe it or not, on this Matfer carbon steel pan recall issue. I've got a ton of new info from Matfer, and just at the top here, I wanted to say I think it's good news and I feel a lot better. We're going to get into the details here in just a second. In the previous update, I mentioned that some Matfer pans have been recalled in France, and we were waiting for more good information here in America to decide whether ours were dangerous or if we could cook in them or not. And I said I was going to take my Matfer pans and kind of set them aside until we got full information. And now that we have the full information and I have read it, I am taking my Matfer pans back and putting mine back into the cooking rotation. So let's jump into some of the details here. First, I want to give Matfer a shout out. We had emailed them a list of 22 fairly in-depth, fairly tough questions. They answered every single one of them. So we're going to go through some of the answers to the questions. Also, I've got details on the test in France that led to the recall, what actually happened. Now, this is about 10 pages worth of information. I'm not going to read it all word for word. I have posted it on the front page of UncleScottsKitchen.com if you want to read it word for word, the questions and the answers directly from Matfer. But let's jump in and talk about what happened, what led to the recall, and their responses to it. At a high level, I'm going to read a couple of quotes here. They talk about a basic roundup of the facts. They say there is nothing to be concerned about regarding the black carbon steel cookware. All Matfer Bourgeois black carbon steel cookware and the raw materials from which they are made fully comply with the stringent safety standards set forth by the French governing body, DGCCRF, and as usual, I guarantee I'm going to mispronounce some French words somewhere in this video, but that is essentially their version of the FDA. He goes on to say, in addition to their pans meeting federal and EU regulations, their factory and products undergo rigorous oversight by department-level governing bodies akin to state-level departments of health in the United States. Recently, and I'm going to probably mispronounce this, the Direction Départementale de la Protection des Populations of Isère, apparently where the factory is located, conducted a random test on one of their frying pans. And he says, for example, it says as if their factory were located in Vermont and the Vermont Department of Health, I guess, came in and did a random quality test. And they go on, and this is very important. They say that they find that the testing method employed by the DDPP to be unrepresentative of the reasonable use of the product. And here's where we get into the details of the test and what happened and what caused the pan to be recalled. He says it's important to note that the testing methodology employed by the DDPP, that would be the state level department, state level agency, not the overall French or EU agencies, differs from that established from carbon steel cookware by the European Union, the French federal government, and to our knowledge, every other department in France. And here's where we get into the meat of what happened. What they did, the DDPP of Isère tested their black carbon steel pan by, listen to this, boiling a citric acid solution in an unseasoned black carbon steel frying pan for 2 hours. 2 hours of boiling an acid in carbon steel. They say based solely on that test, they concluded that the product exceeded legal limits for the migration of iron, arsenic, and chromium or leaching. That is not surprising to me. We all know, and we talk about this, you do not want to cook acidic foods in carbon steel. As a matter of fact, and they even mentioned it later in this email, the how to nuke carbon steel in a start over video that I did. We boiled some tomatoes in there and we used that to take off all of the seasoning off of a carbon steel pan, and that took 15-20 minutes. You definitely wouldn't want to eat that after boiling those tomatoes. And I can understand that boiling in acid for 2 hours would definitely affect the metal and take some of those elements out of the pan. He says the essentially state level offices in France have the right to issue national recalls on products made within their jurisdiction. And based on this test and this test alone, DDPP of Isère issued a recall on our black carbon steel fry pans in France. And I think this is accurate to say here. He says, it is worth noting that the DGCCRF, that is the kind of their version of the FDA, explicitly advises against using black carbon steel material with acidic foods. As you are aware, prolonged boiling of a citric acid solution in an unseasoned black carbon steel fry pan doesn't represent how we or any other brand or experts like yourself would recommend using the product, and obviously may lead to unexpected reactions, including rust. These reactions can potentially alter the composition of the pan's surface, affecting its performance and safety characteristics. Therefore, it is essential to consider the context in which these results were obtained and the relationship to real-world usage. Our legal team in France is working to dispute the recall. That's what we mentioned before. Matfer, from day one on this recall, has been disputing the results. And now we can kind of understand why. So that's kind of the high-level overview of what went on. Let's get into some of the specific questions that we asked. Some of these were my questions. Some of these came from you guys from the comment section, and I asked what you would like to know. I give Matfer full credit here. I'm giving them a shout out for answering all of our questions. Now, another little opinion here is this day and age, we're used to instant gratification and instant responses. This actually took about almost 10 days. But I think, and as I said in the previous video, they're obviously trying to do the right thing and get all the information out here. And I think it was fair to wait until we got all the information. And now we have it. Of course, we wanted the information and the answers immediately. Sometimes it just takes a few days. But in reality, this took less than 2 weeks. And I think it was fair to give them some time to respond. Okay, the main question here. Are the pans safe to cook in? Their answer, absolutely. All Matfer Bourgeois black carbon steel cookware continues to fully comply with the stringent food standards set forth by the DGCCRF and the European Union, and may continue to be used safely for cooking. I like hearing that. People wanted to know the pans sold in the United States and other places around the world. Are they the same as the pans sold in France? And again, why were some recalled and some weren't? They say all Matfer Bourgeois black carbon steel cookware sold throughout the world are the same as the ones sold in France. All black carbon steel pans continue to be fully compliant with the stringent food safety standards set forth by the French federal government and the EU. And this, not only is it in bold, but it's also underlined. They say, to be very clear, if used as directed, these pans are not dangerous. Dangerous is in quotes. It may continue to be used safely in France, the EU, the United States, Canada, and throughout the world. This is what they said from day one. They said the pans are safe. What we didn't know is that the reason the pans failed the test was someone was boiling acid, an acid solution in the pans for 2 hours. It would be akin to maybe a tomato sauce, maybe making slow cooked chili or something. We all know, and we say over and over and over, don't cook acidic foods in your carbon steel. Another question, for the recalled pans, how much cooking would be required to generate negative health effects? Is cooking once dangerous? Here, They say the test by DDPP of Isère involved boiling a 5 grams per liter citric acid solution in an unseasoned black carbon steel fry pan for 2 hours. That acidity level is roughly equivalent to boiling tomato sauce in a bare, unseasoned pan for 2 hours straight. And they say we're clear in our educational materials and on the product packaging that we explicitly advise against using this product with acidic foods. And obviously that much acidic cooking would even exceed your, talking about me, recommended nuclear method for stripping seasoning off pans like you discussed in the previous YouTube video. It seems like the DDPP of Isère didn't understand the common and reasonable use of this product, and in testing the pan in this fashion hasn't taken into consideration the product knowledge of our customers. I think that sounds very fair to me. I asked if something had changed with the French regulations. For this question, this was actually very informative. They say, to be clear, they did not fail any type of French federal regulations. French federal regulations pertaining to our cookware have not changed recently. This was a new test that has only been performed, to our knowledge, by only one state agency, that DDPP of Isère, and only on one manufacturer of carbon steel pans, them. So this test has not been performed by that state, to their knowledge, on any other manufacturer of carbon steel. They do go on to say that the pans, they are not tested by the FDA or Health Canada, and they don't believe they need to be tested by California for Prop 65. Another question I got from some people is, a lot of times these pans are called black carbon steel. They show up brand new, shiny, and silvery, and I asked them about that because it confuses some people. They say colloquially, if I can pronounce that, black steel and carbon steel are interchangeable terms. Black simply refers to both, one, the presence of iron in the steel, and two, that they look black after being well seasoned. There is no difference between carbon steel or black carbon steel, for those wondering. We asked about raw materials. They say they source their raw materials and the raw steel from the EU. Lots of it comes from France, and they also mention Germany. I asked if there were different contaminated batches. They maintain that there is no contamination in any of the batches. They say independent third-party tests performed by UNESCO, and you may need to read some of these acronyms in the release itself, performed on both seasoned and unseasoned pans, found that our black carbon steel pans have met the very rigorous standards of the DGCCRF and the EU. And they continue, we stand by our product. All Matfer Bourgeois black carbon steel cookware continues to fully comply with the stringent food standards set forth, again, by the DGCCRF and the EU. This is plenty good for me. As I mentioned in the previous video, when we were waiting on answers, I said I was taking my Matfer carbon steel and I was going to set it aside until we had better answers and full information, and then make a decision. After reading all of this, I am going to take my Matfers, put them back in the rotation, and I am not going to hesitate to cook on them. I give Matfer full credit for answering our questions in what was probably somewhat of a fire drill for the last week or so. And to me, it seems like it was not deserved. I think Matfer probably got a lot of bad press about this. And after all, if someone puts out a news release that says a pan has been recalled for leaching arsenic, good Lord, what are people supposed to do? But now we have better information, and I think everything is okay. So what do you guys think? Are you going to go back to using your Matfer pans? I highly encourage everyone to read the full in-depth email that I received from them. It's posted on the front page of UncleScott'sKitchen.com. Read that and let me know what you think. Are you going to go back to using your Matfer pans? Did it answer all of your questions? It did for me. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time on Uncle Scott's Kitchen.